Supermarine Spitfire is one of the iconic fighters produced during the Second World War, and the Aviation Heritage Museum's Bull Creek collection is home to two of these legendary aircraft. This is a replica of a Mark 16 Spitfire and is mounted outside the museum as a permanent part of a memorial display. Housed in the north wing is the collection's Mark 22 Spitfire, one of the latest versions of this aircraft produced. Unlike earlier Spitfires, which were powered by the famous Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, these later models were fitted with the more powerful Rolls-Royce Griffon engine. To accommodate the new engine, Griffon-powered Spitfires all featured a longer nose with these characteristic bulges. In the Mark 22 Spitfire, the powerful engine drove a large 5-bladed propeller. These later model Spitfires are also fitted with teardrop canopies which allowed the pilots better all-around visibility in combat. Standard armament was 4 20mm cannon mounted in the wings. A total of 656 Spitfires served with the RAAF, with the first Spitfire Mark 5s becoming operational in Australia in August 1942. Designed for cooler European conditions, the Southwest Pacific area offered particular challenges to the Spitfire. Its fragile undercarriage was not well suited to operating from rough airstrips. Heat and dust caused problems with engine overheating and clogged air filters, and its relatively short range was unsuited to the distances in the Southwest Pacific Theatre. Spitfire Mark 5s operating in Australia were tropicalised versions fitted with large Volks air filters to combat the dust. Japanese bombers operated at a much higher altitude than German bombers, and the freezing air at this altitude contributed to engine and propeller failures with the intercepting Spitfires. In Australia and the Pacific Theatre, the RAAF operated Mark 5 and Mark 8 Spitfires. 451 and 453 Squadron RAAF, which operated in the European and Mediterranean theatres, went on to operate later types, like the Mark 9 and Mark 16 Spitfire. After the war, Australia retired their fleet of Spitfires, and frontline duties were taken over by an Australian-produced version of the P-51 Mustang. However, the Spitfire remained in operation with the British Royal Air Force until the 1950s, and continued to serve for decades with other air forces. The Spitfire remains one of the most well-known and loved combat aircraft in the world, and if you haven't already seen one, come into the Aviation Heritage Museum in Bull Creek to experience a slice of aviation history.